This killer who has been found guilty is currently locked up in California. He just said something from jail that has scared both sides of a murder trial. He drove it. A piece of metal hit him in the head. On the Las Vegas Strip, he held his dying friend while 2 tires blew out below them. He wouldn't say a word for 30 years. Now, just days before the only trial ever held in connection with the killing of Tupac Shakur, Suge Knight finally spoke out. What he said was not a confession. It was a threat, what they said from jail. We all thought Suge Knight would never say anything again. He had every reason to. He is 61 years old and is locked up in the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility near San Diego. He is there to serve a 28-year term for killing Terry Carter in a Compton parking lot in 2015. If he makes it that long, he won't see the outside of a prison until he is well into his 70s. If he talks, he has nothing left to gain and everything to lose. Of course, in the first week of August 2026, Knight called ABC News and gave an interview that sent shockwaves through the Las Vegas courtroom where the murder trial of Duane Keffe D. Davis was about to begin. Davis is accused of planning the 1996 drive-by shooting that killed Tupac Shakur. And if you thought Knight would finally work with you after all these years, you need to know the truth about this man. I have nothing to do with this case, Knight told ABC News. And whoever brings me there will get hurt. That's what I promise. People who don't want to be witnesses don't talk like that. This man's words show that he sees his silence as a weapon and is ready to use it against anyone who tries to get close to him. Knight is on the list of possible witnesses for the prosecution in the Davis case. He would have to show up if he was subpoenaed. But getting Suge Knight to sit in the witness chair and having him say something useful are two very different things. Everyone interested in this case knows it. Knight isn't just a normal person who saw something. He is the only person who saw Tupac Shakur get killed who is still alive. That's him in the BMW. 13 rounds went through the passenger side of that car, and he was sitting less than 2 feet away. He saw 4 hits to Tupac's chest, arm, and thigh. He turned around with flat tires and sped toward Las Vegas Boulevard while a man was dying next to him. He has refused to tell anyone what he saw for 30 years. Through police interviews, grand jury hearings, films, podcasts, and now a full-blown murder trial. Not that he doesn't remember, but because he thinks talking is worse than killing. Knight said it would be worse to take a gun and shoot that man in the head than to stand up and point someone out. Because someone only dies once when they get shot in the head. They will die 1,000,000 times if you tell on them on stand. But he isn't quiet about everything else when he's not talking about the shooter. Because Knight spoke about someone much stronger than Keffe D. Davis in the same interview. And the name he kept coming back to is one that has been following this story from the start. The night everything broke down. The 7th of September 1996 was meant to be a party. It was crazy in Las Vegas. Michael Tyson fought Bruce Seldon at the MGM Grand. Every important person from music, show business, and the streets had flown in to watch. It was right next to the ring for Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight. In the first round, Tyson knocked Seldon out. The crowd went crazy. After that, things got really bad. There were some big changes in the story that people have been following for years. But most people still don't know the little things that turned a fight into a death sentence. After the fight, thousands of people flooded the hallway of the MGM Grand. Trayvon Lane, who worked for Death Row Records, saw someone he knew. A 21-year-old from Southside Compton named Orlando Baby Lane Anderson was there. In July of that year, Anderson and a group of Crips had attacked Lane at the lake in Los Angeles and taken his Death Row Records pendant, a gold chain that had a lot of power in that world. It wasn't just theft that someone took a Death Row badge. It was a sentence. It was an act of defiance meant to make one of the most dangerous hip-hop groups look bad. Lane pointed out Anderson, and Tupac ran at him right away and threw the first punch. Knight and a few other Death Row members joined in. The beating was caught on cameras at the MGM Grand. Every news station in the country would play the same video over and over for weeks. What almost no one talks about is what went on in Tupac's mind after the fight. Knight said in an exclusive interview with People magazine in July 2025 that Tupac was scared that the security footage would be used to put him back in jail. After being jailed for assault, he hadn't been free since October 1995, when Knight paid his bail while he appealed the conviction. Tupac knew that getting caught on camera beating up someone could mean he would have to break his parole. Knight says that Tupac said something that night that people still talk about today, 30 years later. "I'll die before I go back." He changed clothes at the Luxor Hotel and got into a black BMW 750 IL that Knight was driving. They were going to Club 662 on East Flamingo Road, which was run by Knight and was where Tupac was going to be at a charity event. A group of Death Row cars followed behind them. Tupac was sticking his head out of the window. A lot of people were after the car, and for a short time that night it looked like they were done with the fight at the MGM. Then, at the red light at the corner of East Flamingo Road and Koval Lane, a white Cadillac pulled up next to the BMW. In just 6 seconds, everything about hip-hop, music, and the way a whole generation felt about a man who talked about death, like he knew it was coming, changed for good. But the 4 men in the white Cadillac didn't just happen to be at that address. And the way they got there is linked to a name that no one in the music business wanted to say out loud. It's a chain of choices, money, and revenge. The person who wouldn't shut up. There comes a time when a cold case breaks open. Most of the time, it's a piece of physical proof like a fingerprint, a DNA match, or a surveillance angle that no one looked at. There was none of that in the killing of Tupac Shakur. The murder weapon was never found. There was no sign of the white Cadillac. Orlando Anderson, the man most people think pulled the trigger, was shot and killed in Compton in May 1998 in a different gang matter. He was 23 years old. For many years it looked like this case would never be solved. And it would have if one man hadn't been able to hold his tongue. Anderson's uncle, Duane Keffe D. Davis, who used to be a shot caller for the Southside Compton Crips, did something that no defense lawyer in the world could have imagined. He spent 20 years telling everyone about his part in the murder in every way possible. He talked to the police. He was on BET, USA Network, A&E, and Fox. In 2018, he was on a docuseries called Death Row Chronicles. In it, he talked about the night of the shooting in disturbing detail, saying that the shots that killed him came from the back seat of the Cadillac. He said on camera, "I'm going to keep it for the code of the streets. Brother, it came from the back seat." Then, in 2019, he wrote a book called Compton Street Legend. The subtitle said, "The last living eyewitness to Tupac's murder is telling his story." Davis wrote in that book about getting the .40 caliber Glock gun used in the shooting, riding in the white Cadillac, and being there when the shots were fired. He even talked about what he was wearing, a Ray Luca crime story suit, and later, prosecutors found a Polaroid picture of Davis wearing the same outfit. Davis was caught by Las Vegas cops at his home in the suburb of Henderson on the 29th of September 2023. He had been enjoying his retirement. He played golf. He had kids and grandchildren. He really thought that no one could touch him. But the offer agreement he used was made with a task force, made up of federal and Los Angeles police who were looking into the death of Notorious B.I.G., not with Nevada police. Prosecutors in Las Vegas said they were never bound by that deal, and the judge agreed. Davis is currently being held in a Las Vegas jail cell on charges of murder with a deadly weapon. He said he wasn't guilty. He turned down a plea deal, and the defense he is using in 2026 could be the bravest move in the history of modern law. As of now, he says he was never even in Las Vegas the night Tupac was killed. Police found hotel receipts that show a room at the Monte Carlo was booked on the 7th of September 1996 under the name of Davis's wife, Paula Clemens, and a room at the Excalibur was booked under Orlando Anderson's name on the same night. But the most harmful proof against Davis did not come from police or hotel records. The message was sent in a 7-minute phone call that Davis made from jail just days after being arrested. The call that made everything worse. Every call made from jail is recorded. Everyone in jail knows this. Signs are put up next to the phones. Every time someone calls, an automated message plays. Still, in the days after he was arrested in September 2023, Keffe D. Davis called a woman who was known to be his mistress and addressed him as her husband, even though he was legally married to someone else. He told her right away about the book when she asked him about it. "Oh yes, I did." 4 words. It only took that one thing to break down his whole defense. Davis and his lawyers had been building their case around a single point of view for months. That Compton Street legend was made up by co-author Yusuf Jah, who wrote it without seeing it, and Davis had never even read it. Davis himself said it in an interview with ABC News in March 2025 while he was in jail. "I haven't read it yet. I just told him about my life and he did his own research and wrote the book on his own." The phone call, though, told a different story. Judge Carly Kearney said the novel could be used as proof because Davis had said in public that it was the truth more than once. That 7-minute recording will be played during the trial, which is set to last 4 weeks. For those of you who think Davis could still get out of this, think about what Suge Knight said about Davis's defense from his jail cell. He might as well go out with a bang and walk right into his lawyer and sock him in the face if that's his defense. You put yourself there. Knight said Davis was like a person grabbing at flowers and twigs as they fall off a cliff, knowing that nothing will stop him. He's doing this because he knows it won't slow them down. But the phone call and the memoir aren't even the most shocking parts of this case. The most shocking part is, Davis dropped a name that has been linked to this murder for 30 years during his official meeting with federal investigators in 2008. A name that showed up 77 times in court documents filed by the Clark County District Attorney in July 2024. The reward of $1 million. Diddy Combs is Sean. When police asked Keffe D. Davis who paid for the hit, he gave them that name. USA Today got a copy of a 2025 DEA document that said Davis said Combs put a $1 million reward on the heads of both Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur. Davis told the police that Combs told him in front of up to 45 people that he would give anything for those guys' heads. Combs has always denied having anything to do with it. Police in Las Vegas have stated that he has never been charged or thought to be involved with the murder. However, the accusations have not stopped getting louder every year, especially from Suge Knight. Knight has been adamant about this point from jail. "I end up with a bullet an inch into my skull, but at the same time everyone knows where $1 million came from," he told People magazine. What would Pac want, for example? He really wants the truth. In April 2024, Knight pointed the finger at Combs again, this time calling him an FBI spy and saying that the music business had known for years. Gene Deal, who used to be Diddy's bodyguard, has openly asked federal agents to follow the money, saying that the $1 million may have been sent through a friend named Eric Von Zip Martin. Davis himself said in tape from 2008, that wasn't released until August 2024, that he tried to get the $1 million from Combs after the murder, but was tricked by Martin, who is said to have taken the money and run away. The family of Tupac has hired a lawyer in New York to look into these ties. Combs has not been charged, but his name is now cast over the whole trial like a shadow. Suge Knight's decision not to appear is not a sign of weakness. That's what it means. That Knight lives by is older than hip-hop, death row records, and anything that happened at that Las Vegas intersection in 1996. That is something you have to understand, whether you like it or hate it. People in Compton, where Knight grew up, think that working with the police is the worst thing that can happen. In that interview with ABC News, Knight tied his own hands with his own ideas. "My loyalty to Tupac can never be compromised," he stated. "What I believe in as a man can't be changed. I'm not there to hurt him or help him. And every word makes you feel like it can't be true. Oh, he loves Tupac. He tells him that every day he thinks about him. He saw him bleed to death in the passenger seat of his own car, but he won't go to court and do the one thing that could make him responsible for the death, because he thinks that would make him worse than a killer. He wouldn't stop talking until they jailed him." Knight said about Davis. He told himself everything he said and did. That last line is the most like a verdict that Suge Knight will ever give. He thinks Davis is guilty, but he thinks Davis's own words, not his, should be used to convict him. The prosecution doesn't have a murder weapon, a white Cadillac, any co-conspirators who are still alive and ready to testify, or any help from the only eyewitness who is still alive. Their case is mostly based on a defendant who said things about the killing for 20 years before later saying some of those things were not true. He's in everybody's mind. The murder trial of Keffe D. Davis will be one of the strangest in American legal history. A man is being charged based mostly on what he said. The concrete proof does not exist. The star witness doesn't want to help. And the defendant's defense plan is for the jury to think that the man who spent 20 years putting himself at the scene of one of the world's most famous murders lied every single time. This trial is about a lot more than Keffe D. Davis, though. For people who grew up listening to Tupac and remember where they were on the 13th of September, 1996, when they heard he had died. Suge Knight, the man at the center of it all, talked about his 16-year-old son Legend at the end of his interview with ABC News. Legend plays basketball and writes rap music. Knight said that Tariq is his favorite rapper. His friends like Tupac more than any other rapper. So, these young people still love and believe in Tupac, my own son. Then he said something that will stay with anyone who has ever loved an artist as much as Tupac did. There is no Tupac here. I wouldn't say he's not here though, because everyone is thinking about him. People who knew him will always remember him. Tell us what you think about this case, and whether you think the big name in this case is still being protected, or if you think the whole truth has finally come out. Let us know what you think.